Hello, happy Saturday, or whatever day it is where you are or when you watch this. Looking today at a secondhand copy I bought of Filter's 1999 album Title of Record. I picked it up probably a couple of years ago, somewhere in the last 3 years, I know that for sure. And you see the Green Dot Special, I've talked about that or something like that before at a particular secondhand music store in the city I live. They use these different price coding stickers. There's blue dot, red dot, so on and so forth. I can't remember what the green dot price was, and they changed them as well. I've noticed recently I went in and the prices have increased. So I would imagine this would have been around $5 because it's actually relatively easy to find this album even in charity shops. When I say relatively easy, is you come across it from time to time. It's not something you would never ever see. Um, it was relatively successful in New Zealand. I think it was the New Zealand was the highest charting country for it. It got to like number 12 on the album chart here, um, or something like that. And so, when an album is relatively successful, you can always find things from it. Anyway, so the band Filter, uh, I guess, were born out of Nine Inch Nails because the two, well, Richard Patrick, I guess, is Filter as much as Trent Reznor is Nine Inch Nails. Richard Patrick was a guitarist in Nine Inch Nails from the period from excuse me, Pretty Hate Machine through Broken up until before the Downward Spiral, and you can see him in. You can certainly see him in early Nine Inch Nails interviews. There's some funny ones with him and Trent Reznor in the late '80s, early '90s, and they both look very, very young and kind of dorkish. And then he's also in the one of the Gave Up videos, the one that they recorded at I think they were at the Sharon Tate house recording there, and you see he's playing guitar in that, and as well as a young Marilyn Manson is also in that. Pre-fame Marilyn Manson is featured in that video. Anyway, there's another guy, Brian Lisgang. I don't actually know how to pronounce his name, but he left. He was in Nine Inch Nails as well. Now, I don't know how much he actually did in that band and how long he was because there's not a lot of information, and they had so many guys come and go from that band. So I think he was involved in a similar period as Richard Patrick, but to a lesser degree, because Richard Patrick was kind of like a full member. There's kind of like a few guys that achieved were in the band long enough to be considered kind of part of Nine Inch Nails, um, like Richard Patrick and I guess Robin, the current guitar players, and Danny Lohner, the bass player through most of the '90s. But this guy Brian Leesgang, I don't think he would be considered that level. So I don't know if he just kind of helped out in the studio or added bits and pieces here and there. But anyway, he is on. He is in the Broken. If you look under Discogs.com, he is listed as a player on the Broken EP for Nine Inch Nails. So him and Richard Patrick both left the Nine Inch Nails fold and started a band, Filter, and that would have been about 94, 95. And they made the album Short Bus, which was pretty successful. Then it sounds like, um, in Trent Reznor fashion, Richard Patrick wanted to control Filter and have more say in the creative direction, and so him and Brian, Lee's gang, or let's just call him Brian, had a falling out, and Brian left, and that left Richard Patrick by himself, which I would assume is what he wanted. And from then on out, up until today, it has really been a Richard Patrick enterprise. He's had players come and go, and some of the guys have stayed longer than others, but certainly there's nothing that you would call the band Filter as a kind of continuous entity because it's basically him. He pretty much writes most of the things, most of the album. This album here, 5 minutes in, start talking about the album. This album here, if we look at the liner notes, the condition of the album is fine, near new. Trying to get the booklet out, it's a little bit hard sometimes. Trying to get it past those little plastic stopper things on the edge. Something I noticed with at least the first two Filter albums, I don't know about the ones after that, they put the track listing on the front cover as well as the barcode. What's that all about? I don't think it's like a particularly interesting, like, is that meant to be a particularly interesting design choice, but there you go. And then the back has a barcode as well, and then really nothing. If you look at the booklet, this is something I noticed because I own this, like so many of the CDs I talk about here, I own this new back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I bought this for new and subsequently lost it in the years. But I noticed he used that photo. That's Richard Patrick, if you don't know. His brother is Robert Patrick, the T-1000 from Terminator 2. You know, the guy who is made of like gelatinous mercury metal and Arnie can't kill him. That's his brother, and you can kind of see it in the face, can't you? In the eyes, certainly. So that's a successful family, isn't it? A famous musician, one brother, and a famous actor, other brother, and independently of each other. It's not as though he became famous off the coattails or off of each other, because Robert Patrick is not really a big actor. He hasn't really been in much since Terminator 2, has he? He pops up every now and then. I've seen him in different things, but certainly not some massive movie star that would allow enough fame to get his brother a record contract. It was nothing like that. It was completely independent. They found fame in their own ways. That's quite cool. That guy there is Gino Leonardo. Now, when I saw this photo, I thought, well, was it intended at this stage that he would be his new writing partner? Because I can tell you that the next album after this, Amalgamut, American, what am I saying the name right? I think it's Amalgamut. Yes, the Amalgamut. He had gone. He left in about after the touring cycle of Title of Record. He was out, as were the other guys, Steve Gillis and Frank Kavanagh. I think Frank Kavanagh played with Prong in the late 90s as well. But they left, as is what has happened continuously since. He gets guys together for tours, but he basically does most of the work in the studio, from what I can tell. So, yeah, what I would imagine that maybe he thought, okay, this guy, we've done well, because that guy does have some writing credits on this album. Can we see? Well, I looked at the Wikipedia early and I saw that It's Gonna Kill Me, Gino Leonardo wrote. Skinny, I Will Lead You. He has co-writing credits with him. So maybe Richard Patrick felt he had found a good writing partner, and he thought, hey, I'm going to include him on the picture of the album, because I think going forward this could be a good writing partnership, and we could be filtered together. Because you see, we don't see Frank Kavanagh or Stephen Gillis featured. But that didn't work out, and I've never really researched into what happened, but he obviously left. You get the feeling that Richard Patrick is a bit of a control freak, because he's kind of, like I said, he forced out the other guy from Short Bus, and maybe he didn't force out this guy. Maybe this guy just left of his own accord, and Richard Patrick just thought, I can't be bothered getting on now, so I'm just going to do it myself from now on. It's a good album. Those are the lyrics. It's a good album, in my opinion. The singles are good. Sand starts off as just kind of like a sound collage, and it got a bit of like string instruments in the background. Welcome to the Fold was the first single. That's a good rock song, good solid rock song. It's Gonna Kill Me. Captain Bligh, actually, track 3. It's a good song as well. The Best Things, that's kind of got an electronic tinge to it, and a kind of drum and bass style drum beat, at least at the start, and then throughout it. The video's a bit cringe. They're out in the desert, driving cars. Very late 90s, early 2000s feel. Take a Picture obviously was their big single, and I'd say their most successful song. Based around an acoustic guitar, chord progression, interesting lyrics. I have actually heard him talk about those lyrics before. He was on drugs, or he was drunk, and he kind of freaked out on an airplane, and he woke up and kind of came to and had a realization about his life. And people were taking pictures of him. But it's a good song, and I've a memory of that when probably it was 2001, because I remember I had a friend who died. She was a young girl, she was only 20, and this was 2001, and we had her funeral, and then we had her kind of, I don't know, I guess what you'd call a wake, not really a wake, but all of friends came back to the place I was living at the time, which is kind of a big house, flat, we call it in New Zealand, shared house. And we, had kind of like a party, not like a party, just like kind of friends together drinking and listening to music and kind of reminiscing. And gradually people left throughout the night. And then at the end of the night, there was just like 3 or 4 people left. And I just have a memory of sitting in the lounge of the living room of that house. And 2 of the guys I didn't even know. There was this random guys. Obviously, they knew her. I don't know who they were, sitting in my house. And this song, Take a Picture, that song was playing, and we were absolutely blasting it. Like the stereo was at full volume. This would have been like 1 a.m. Blasting the shit out of that song, and just everyone, 4 people, 2 of whom were strangers, just sitting there listening to Take a Picture at full volume in a kind of somber mood. And so that song, I always connected to that memory, and it's a nice song. It's a cool song. Second half of the album, Skinny, I Will Lead You, Cancer. Darcy from Smashing Pumpkins sings on Cancer. There's a female voice. I didn't know it was actually her until I read the liner notes. I'm Not the Only One, Miss Blue. Those are all. To be honest, I don't think there's a bad song on it. There's some songs that aren't as memorable as the others, but it's like I said, a solid album. It kind of keeps a good level throughout. This has 2 bonus tracks. Now I saw on the Discogs, it says that the Japanese edition has the same 2 bonus tracks. This isn't the Japanese edition. I'd assume this is the Australasian edition, and so maybe that's it. Jerusalem and Trip Like I Do. Trip Like I Do that he did with a collaboration with Crystal Method, which was on the Spawn soundtrack. If you remember in the late 90s, there was that movie Spawn, and there was a lot of it was like the concept behind the soundtrack was collaborations between seemingly disparate musical partners, but no, not really though. But it was a bit of a rock and electronic together. I can't remember any of the other ones. I think there was Marilyn Manson and Sneaker Pimps. But I think that the biggest one was the Richard Patrick filter with Crystal Method, Can't You Trip Like I Do, which really encapsulates that sound, that big beat sound that was popular in the late 90s of Crystal Method and Chemical Brothers, Fatboy Slim. But it really marries perfectly together, that big beat with filter style electric guitars. It's a really well done song, because it so often putting 2 things together doesn't work, and that song does work. So it's good that they added on here. I think I've got the Spawn soundtrack as well somewhere. Do I? No, actually I don't. I don't have the Spawn soundtrack. And Jerusalem was another soundtrack track from Crow City of Angels, which I think was the second or third Crow movie. So obviously Brandon Lee died in the filming of the first movie, which also had a great soundtrack. Um, Nine Inch Nails song on there, cover of Dead Souls by Joy Division, and a Cure song. Burn. Anyway, the City of Angels, the Crow, the City of Angels was a much worse movie. It wasn't a good movie, and I don't know fully about the soundtrack. But Jerusalem was a Filter song, and that was a song that he has a writing credit with Brian Lee's gang, the guy who did he worked with on Short Bus and subsequently forced out of the band. Jerusalem is a great song. Very, I don't know how to describe it. Very Nine Inch Nails-ish, to be honest, but a good song. I don't know what to say more about it than that. And I think it is a good bridge track between Short Bus and Title of Record. Um, but yeah, it's one of my favorite Filter songs, Jerusalem. So yeah, all in all, I like this period of Filter. I much prefer this album to Short Bus. Short Bus was a good album, but I think Title of Record is better. The album after this, the Amalgama, that is a pretty good album as well. That's got the single Where Do We Go From Here, which is an excellent song. In the vein of Take a Picture, but not the same, but it kind of, I would say, you can see how the two songs, or at least one song informs the other song. But yeah, he's still going. Richard Patrick. He's been releasing albums consistently throughout the 21st century. I will say I haven't listened to most of them. Um, like I said, I've listened to Amalgama. I don't own the Amalgama, but I've listened to it. Anthems for the Damned to 08, Trouble for Angels, With Angels at 10. Sun Comes Out Tonight 13, Crazy Eyes 16. They've got us right where they want us at each other's throats, which comes out this year. And I follow him on social media, Richard Patrick, and I see sometimes he posts um, clips of him recording vocals, which I assume is for this new album. Also, that Nine Inch Nails were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame during COVID, I think 2020, so they couldn't do the live, presentation and performance which they usually do. Richard Patrick obviously is like I said one of the key members of that band, as much as you can be a key member of Nine Inch Nails, and so he was part of the induction, and they did. It wasn't strictly for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They did a concert in Cleveland, Nine Inch Nails, kind of with all the players throughout the whole career of the band. Like they did like a set, and they'd bring out different guys. Like Richard Patrick would come out for certain songs, and and he performed his new single at that show. Maybe there was like an agreement. Trent asked him. He said, hey, "Can you? We're going to do this show. Can you come and play with us?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll do it. Can I perform my new single if I do it?" And Trent said, "Yeah, maybe." Or maybe he just, who knows? Maybe it wasn't so mercenary. But that's got some good footage of that show. You can find it on YouTube. Like I said, all the guys who you associate with that band through the years, like Danny Lohner and Richard Patrick and Chris Renner and I think Charlie Klauser, the keyboardist from like the Fragile era. Um, Not everyone. I don't. Yeah, like Aaron North. He was in the With Teeth era. He wasn't there. But anyway, it's a good stuff if you like Nine Inch Nails. Cool. All right. That's a long one. Sorry, I do ramble, but I like talking about music, and there's no one else to talk to about it. So I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, um, write a. Yeah, I won't say fucking hit the like button or anything like that, but well, do, but comment, because yeah, I would like some kind of a. I would enjoy some kind of communication about these videos, or how you feel about this music, or your opinion about the albums or the am I wrong in some of the things I say? I'm sure some of the things I say aren't correct, because I do kind of just go a lot from memory of things I've read over the years or heard. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it.